Hey, you guys, we're back again. Wow, a lot has happened in the world in just 4 or 5 days. Um, wow, yeah, a lot has happened. I'm here in Chicago, and obviously, Chicago has been affected by the protest. And actually, there was even protests in Brazil, and we are going to talk a little bit about that today. The main focus of this live is going to be about being a conscious Black man in Brazil. And today I have with me Durval Arantes, and he is here with me today because to me, he is the epitome of what it means to be a conscious Black man in Brazil. Let me introduce you to him through his bio. So, first of all, Durval, I actually met Durval through a Facebook group that he created almost 8 years ago named Intelectualidades Afro-Brasileiras. And I don't know, I think another American told me about this Facebook group because they said, if you want to know what Black people in Brazil are talking about, you have to get into this Facebook group. So about 5 years ago, before I moved to Brazil, I entered this Facebook group, barely speaking Portuguese, but still following the conversation. And Durval happens to be the creator of this Facebook group. And when I was moving to Brazil, he helped me so much to introduce me to wonderful people in Sao Paulo, in Rio. I mean, he really helped me to do my reporting and etc. So, and that's another reason why I feel it's important to share his story with the audience out there. Another thing, let me read you his bio. So, Durval Arantes is an English teacher, a Black culturalist, an African studies scholar, a speaker, entrepreneur, and author. In 2014, he published the book O Ultimo Negro, The Last Black, and his next book will be O Sigma Ashanti. With broad and solid ties with the African American community, along with his militancy, Durval is an eloquent advocator of the emancipation of Black people in Brazil. So thank you so much for doing this interview with me. I'm ready for people who don't speak Portuguese to know you because every Black person who is conscious knows who you are. They know who you are in Brazil. But now we got to make sure the Black people in America or around the world know who you are and how important the work that you do is online.
First of all, thanks for having me, Kiratiana. It's really a pleasure to be able to participate in this exchange of ideas that you created, and congratulations on your idea. I hope that our conversation today comes to be something useful for people who are listening and watching us. First of all, I'd like to offer a few seconds in honor of the Black people being murdered around the world. As a means to show respect to everything that is happening. I would like to offer a few seconds of silence, respectful silence to these people. Okay, with that being said, I also always like to do my openings thanking people and all the fighters who precede me. So I like to always quote Dandara and Zumbi dos Palmares about the things that they have done for Black people in Brazil. So here I ask for their blessings and their protection so that this conversation can become very fruitful for everybody participating in this moment, okay? And I'm open to questions, and
we'll start. And also, let me reinforce. Also, some people may be tuning in for the first time. My name is Kiratiana Freeland. I'm a journalist based in Rio de Janeiro. I've been writing about Afro-Brazil issues, news, culture for the last 5 years, and this is part of a series of videos that I'm doing in English because there is very little very little on the internet where you have Afro-Brazilians telling their own story in English, because obviously there's a lot of us who don't speak Portuguese, because I found that Portuguese is that language barrier. And I do plan to do interviews in Portuguese. I'm going to do those later in the year when I do have a budget for translation. But for now, this series is aimed towards people who don't speak Portuguese, and obviously Afro-Brazilians who are learning English. This is a great way to improve your English, because some of these topics you will be familiar with, and so you can hear it being spoken in English. So my first question, and I always like to start off with a question about people's backgrounds, because some of our audience don't really understand what is a typical background of an Afro-Brazilian. Not that I'm not saying that there is a typical background, but many of us don't know about Black Brazilian families. We don't know where Black people in Brazil come from. So to start off, I would like you to tell us about where you are from in Brazil, and what type of family you grew up with, and how did they help you get to where you are right now?
Right. Fantastic. Well, I'm the middle brother of siblings of 7. I am the fourth to be born. I was born in a small city called Volta Redonda, the countryside of Rio de Janeiro, back in 1962. My parents were originally from Minas Gerais. I just happened to be born in Volta Redonda because I literally opened my eyes in the city of São Paulo. I must have been 1 or 2 years old when my family came back to São Paulo, where I lived until I was 14 years old. But when I was 14 years old, for a lot of reasons, my family had to move back to Volta Redonda.
Really?
Yeah, in 1976, I lived there. And it's important to quote my brothers and sisters. From the beginning, I have Marcelina Maria, then I have Celso, then I have João Gabriel, who passed away in 1998, then myself, of course. Then I have Regina Célia, then I have Marcos, and then I have Sofia. So this is the bunch which I was fortunate to be born in. And when I was 14 years old, I moved back to Volta Redonda, 1976. I had my family was going through a lot of financial situations, and we have to readequate our lives, our social profile. But it was okay because then I had the opportunity to focus a little bit more on study, get my first job, start to educate myself, get some knowledge, and then I really started to dedicate a lot of time in studying English at that time. It wasn't something like forced. It was something very natural that happened to me because I always liked Black music.
Oh, okay.
So in order to understand the lyrics and what people were saying, and etc., I started to dedicate a lot of time, self teaching me how to speak the language. But then
so
in 19
taught yourself. You taught yourself English.
Pretty much so.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And then in 1983, my parents passed away, 5 months apart, and then my older sister Marcelina was already living in São Paulo. She invited me to return to São Paulo. Then I started living with her in 1984, and then I have been living here ever since.
And I have to ask, why didn't your family decide to go to Rio? Because Rio is closer to Volta Redonda, no?
Good. This goes back to the 1930s, 1940s, when the city of Volta Redonda decided to open the first steel factory from Latin America. As a matter of fact, it was a project that was financed by President Roosevelt from the United States. So we had this huge attraction of labor force to go to Volta Redonda, because Volta Redonda is strategically located between Minas, São Paulo, and Rio. It's kind of among the 3 cities the same distance. So it could attract labor force. And my grandfather lived in the country of Minas Gerais, and he decided to move with his family to Volta Redonda.
Wow.
And then that's when the whole thing started, from my grandfather to my father, and then my father. Yeah. That was the big decision way back then, and here I am.
Cool. And would you
So
say?
I was. Oh, by the way, I am the only offspring who was born in Volta Redonda. All my brothers and sisters were
Mhm.
born in São Paulo.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly, exactly.
And so, would you call your family middle class, working class, or what? You know what? Or was it?
Nah, our origin, I have to say, was very humble. I mean, talk about humble, if you know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Always struggling to make ends meet, and um, all the kids going to public schools.
Mm-hmm.
We were in the section of the street where I used to live. We were the only black family. Uh, we lived. Now try to figure this out. We lived in the middle, right in the middle of Japanese, German, Italian, Portuguese families.
Wow.
Yes, and we were the only black family in that section of the street,
Wow.
and also we were the less privileged one.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to learn how to survive in many ways,
Mm-hmm.
financially, socially, spiritually, and etc. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
but now that you asked me, and to answer your question, I must have said that myself and all my brothers and sisters, we have come a long way. You know,
Wow.
all my brothers and sisters, they have stable families,
Nice.
assets, and I'm very proud of my brothers and sisters, very, very proud. And I myself too, because considering my background and my past history, I have come a long, long way, I must
Wow.
say. Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank
So
you.
my first question is it's kind of a weird question. Um,
Hmm.
but okay. At what how old were you or when did you realize that you were a black person in Brazil?
Nice, wonderful question. Well, you see, as a black child being raised in a predominantly white neighborhood, I always noticed that something was wrong in some childhood interaction with other boys around me. Subtle jokes, cross talkings, indirect speech, and all. But naive I was, I figured it was something. How can I say this? I knew that it was something momentaneous from my analysis or unpretentious. But then there's one incident that I would like to illustrate here in this conversation. I must have been 12 or 13, and then we boys knew about a night house party supposed to take place a few streets down the block. Bear in mind that in my corner, like I said, I was the only black boy in the bunch. So then comes the big night, and we all got our best outfit, and down the street we went. So when we approached the spot, the party had already started. The gate was wide open. The hallway was, full of people, young kids, and everything. The party was going on in the back portion of the house. We both kind of found a section on the floor where the other teens were dancing, and everything was running smoothly. Oh well, I dared to get down with some, steps for dancing, as any of the other kids having a good time in that moment.
Mhm.
Then I felt this strong grip in one of my arms. I looked up, and I saw this elderly white woman, grayish haired. She had fury and hatred in her eyes upon me. And for my surprise, she dragged me out along the dance floor and the hallway, all the way up to the sidewalk of the house. And then she locked the gate from inside, and by gesturing with her hand as she shooed me away from the place. And yeah, I froze for a few seconds, not understanding precisely what had just happened, and feeling humiliated and dreaded by the situation. I walked back home all by myself past midnight. But on that night, however, I made a promise to myself I would never let no one underestimate my value as a human being. Little did that woman know that that incident sparked the black consciousness in me, and the black conscience in me. And I've been trying to uh, to make something good out of it ever since. You
So
know, that incident made me stronger. Okay.
So I have
Then
to ask, this is for our non-Brazilian audience, but for people like myself, maybe even black people in France, for them, it appears that they know that they're black much earlier, or it's a much more simpler way of kind of understanding that they are black. Why did you have to go through this experience to understand that you are a black person in Brazil?
First of all, because I was a child, and as a child, I didn't have a knowledge of myself, a knowledge of self. And second of all, because I'm afraid to say, and it's unfortunate to say, that Brazil is a racist country. You know, the racism of Brazil stems back to the time of colonization, where we had the European invading, not discovering, but invading the territory. And they created this class distinction between who is white and who is black and who is a Native American. And this kind of mindset has been taking part of the Brazilian history. I was just one more incident out of 1 billion incidents like this over a black child. You know? And the roots of this relationship between whites and blacks and native people in Brazil stem from the time that the Portuguese invaded Brazil to colonize the country.
So I wanna tell our audience, if you guys have any questions, please start posting them in the comments. We're going to be taking your questions like as of now. I'm going to do this next question of mine, and then let's ask Durval about what it means to be a conscious black man in Brazil. So my next question to you, Durval, am I pronouncing that right? How do you pronounce it in Portuguese? Durval?
Okay. Can I ask you a big favor? Can I ask you a big favor, if you don't mind?
Sure.
Okay. My students, my family, friends, most of my friends, they call me Dury.
Dury.
Which is it's my nickname, Dury.
Okay,
Just
Dury.
call me Dury.
Okay.
Now let me give you just like that.
Okay, cool.
See that? All right.
So my next question. Okay, so you told us you were 12. You were 12 when this happened, right?
12, 13, yeah, so around that, yeah.
So tell me, you said from that moment you were like, you knew that you were going to have a black consciousness. So tell us, what did you do from that moment to develop this black consciousness? And can you tell us what you did when you were a teenager, and maybe what you were when you were 20s? Because in my opinion, what you did when you're a young kid is probably different from what you're doing now. So explain to us what you've been doing to develop a black consciousness.
Excellent question. Actually, it was a process, because I had to phase out from my innocence of living in a fair society. And you have to keep in mind that was the first incident. I had others. But this first incident started to give me the lessons that I would have to apply to my mindset to little by little change the way I used to see the world. So putting together the difficult situation of my family back then, moving to Volta Redonda to readapt to start from the scratch again. In all these incidents, the social experiences, that it started to build up my consciousness. Okay, living in a small city, trying to get the first job, going again to public school at night, and this and that, and I started to notice the differences. Okay, the treatment and the sometimes resentment, the way that society used to treat me, not only me but my peers, my equals. I said, something's terribly wrong with the Brazilian society as far as I know it. And then I started to get some knowledge. So I started to read more about Black movement and civil rights, and also this is a fact that is very interesting. Being keen to black music from the 60s and 70s started to give me the flavor and the speech and the rhetoric of self-consciousness.
So tell us about this
Exactly.
music. Now, is this Brazilian music or American music? Tell us
Both.
which music.
Both.
What
Both.
people were you
Both.
listening to?
Say like from Brazil, like Tim Maia and Jorge Ben, and those people, Trio Ternura, people from that time, from the United States, Curtis Mayfield, Steve Wonder, and all those black leaders from the 60s, the Staple Sisters, or what was the name of that group? I don't remember now.
I don't remember.
So, exactly. Nina Simone and all those people start to say, whoa, wait a minute, they're saying something here. They're saying something really serious here. Okay. So studying English and listening to black music back then gave me an edge, gave me an advantage in the formation of my militancy, And then I started to adapt and adapt it to the Brazilian reality and to my speech as well, knowing the difference between the two countries. Yeah, and then this preparation, so to speak, gave me the chance to understand better. Nowadays, I can map out really what's happening in terms of racism and inequality and this and that because of that time, because of that preparation that I had.
But is this
30,
so?
40 years ago.
But can you explain to us how you went through this process in comparison to your other black peers? Were they also doing the same thing, or were you just this one person who decided to embark upon developing your own personal black consciousness? And I'm asking this question because right now, a lot of black people are seeking out to really improve their black identity and improve their pride in being black. But everybody tells me that back in the day, not a lot of people were proud to be black. So were you just the only person doing this amongst your friends, or
No, absolutely not. No, it's just I can talk for myself. I would say that I consider myself privileged, and maybe our ancestry gave me a mission, and I have to use this mission to the best of my knowledge. Because check this out, I had everything at hand to become a bad guy because I had no money. I couldn't go to private schools, but instead I was blessed with this gift to be keen to reading, culture, books, and I was the kind of boy that I could play soccer very well. I could dance and sing and be a rascal sometimes, like any other little boy. But I always knew that I always excelled at school. I always liked to read and get knowledge to, go a little further than the other boys. I always knew about that, and I'm not saying that to brag on myself. It's just a reality. But now I know I have the mission, the commitment to give something back. That's why this is one of the reasons I created the groups, and I try to uplift the spirit of Black people as much as I can. And I have some principles that I use in my, emotional life, my social life, my professional life. There are some territories that nobody can step in, no matter if the person is white or Black, which is the respect to my ancestry, the respect for Black women, the support to my Black brothers. This is a sacred territory for me in my life because I know how much I had to suffer and give up in order to get this mindset. So it's a precious space that through my ancestry I try to give back to our community.
So I actually have one question that popped up into my head, but before I do my next question, I want to go to the audience because we already have 2 questions from the audience.
Oh, nice. That's
From
nice.
Damien Agia Marasa. She says, I'm curious about your library, Professor Dory. What are some important books that influenced you that you read in English, that you read in English? And are there Portuguese language translations of Black American authors that you found memorable?
Wow, nice question. Well, I can. Let me see if I can get to some of them that I have here right now. I would say, okay, actually, I'm going to show the book that literally changed my life. To that matter, is where is it? Oh Lord. Okay, as I cannot find it now. It's somewhere here. It's Black Roots from Alex Haley. That book changed my life totally because I was 14 or 15. But I first read it when I was probably 18 or 19. But of course, I had seen the TV series before. That was the ultimate transformation of my life when I read that book.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I read the slave trade history, how Black people were kidnapped in Africa and then brought to this side of to the western part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I have many. If I have the chance here, I will put one of my books here to show you guys. But I'm always reading. And after some time, and we're going to get to that point, I felt the necessity not only to read it, but to write my own books. Okay. But my primary reference is Black Roots from Alex Haley.
So we actually have another question, and then I'll go to my question. How do I pronounce it? Edgy Lamia Coelho. She asked, do your family members deny being Black and say that they are Merinos like mine and see Black as an offensive word? Mine even say that I'm white.
Well, that's a very complex and I would say delicate question. Okay, people have choices. People have choices. What I'm trying to say, whatever happened to me will not happen to every Black man, you know. So maybe eventually I will have some family members who still have barriers and blocks to assume and take up their Black heritage, their Black ancestry. I'm away from that. I got rid of that when I was 10 or 12 years old. It's not only my family, but most of the Black families will have this or that member who will deny, who will have problems and issues, assuming they're Black. You know, I'm very proud of my heritage. I'm happy to be a Black man. If I had the choice, I would be born Black again, no problem. I have worked out my self-esteem along the years. I know about my history, my ancestry, and so yeah. For those people in that situation, I think it's not a solution, but it's one suggestion. Try to talk. Try to show history books, the good ones at least. Try to talk about Africa in a positive and uplifting way. And then, because it's a process, nobody's going to change overnight. Okay, I'm Black. It's a process. It takes, years and years of, meditation, concentration, study, until you get, okay, look, I'm proud of who I am. It takes a long time. It's not that easy.
Okay. We actually have another question related to that from Gabriel Arantes.
Oh.
Are you related to this person?
Gabriel. It's my nephew. And hey, God, I call him the ambassador because he lives in Volta Redonda. And he's kind of my representative in the city,
Okay, God.
Yeah.
So he asked, Dury, how do you see Black consciousness 10 years from now in 2030?
Okay. Hey, Gabriel, a kiss for you and Jadi. Jadi's newly born daughter. Okay.
Oh, nice.
How do I see Black consciousness 10 years from now? Well, I would say that 10 years from now, because of everything that's happening right now, COVID and coronavirus and these lootings and riots around the world, and the unfortunate assassination of João Pedro and George Floyd and many other brothers and sisters in this tragic situation. Hopefully, especially the young generation, black people will be more conscious about their importance, their value, their history, their culture. Hopefully, people will have more consciousness of being, okay, being human, that's fine, but being black too. We have to keep in mind, we have to teach our children that black people is the original people. Homo sapiens, the original people, came from Africa. All the other ethnics are just an adaptation of what the Homo sapiens was 100,000 or 100,000, 20 years ago. So we have to teach this to our children. And if the schools don't want to do it, we grown-ups, we have to do that. We have to get the books, teach our children their value, their history, their pride, their value as a human beings. Okay, I don't care if the school or the schools don't want to do this. As much as I have the chance, the opportunity, I will do it myself as much as I can.
Okay, go ahead. So my next question is, let's talk about your Facebook group, Intellectual Dodgies Afro-Brasileiras. But before we talk about your Facebook group, were you involved in online communities, Black online communities in Brazil before Facebook? And can you tell us how that was? Tell us about the history of Black digital online communities before Facebook.
Oh yeah, right before Facebook, we had a WordCut. I don't know if you guys remember. We had a WordCut as a virtual group, and inside a WordCut, we had a few Black-oriented groups that were like a prototype of what Facebook was going to be about. And yes, I did participate. I took part in some of these groups back then, but then Orkut shut down and people stopped using it. And there was an overlapping because right before Orkut was out of air, the Zuckerberg launched Facebook. Then there were a few groups before the ones I started open, and I joined some of these groups, one by one. It was the beginning of the wave, the beginning of the use of Facebook groups. Then after a while, I said, well, I think I can take this to another level. Then I start to mature some ideas. Okay, I want to do something a little bit different, even though it's still Facebook, but I want to do something a little bit different. Then I opened the Intelectualidade Afro-Brasileira, and then things start to happen.
And what made this Facebook group different or maybe similar to other groups? Like, how did it become? I mean, in my opinion, this Facebook group is kind of where all the other Black Facebook groups sprang from. It was like, it was the beginning, and then everybody would, obviously with large online communities, people kind of silo themselves. But this, I felt like yours is the beginning of really. Am I incorrect?
I wouldn't say that we are the beginning. I don't have that pretension. But I would say that when I first decided to offer the group, to make it available for the public, I wanted to do something different. So I started by establishing some, I don't like to say rules, but some recommendations how to use the panel of discussions. Then I started to filter the profile of people who would join the group in order to avoid problems. If you know what I mean. And I started to bring something that would uplift the spirit of whoever would try to participate. So I said, okay, the landmark And the milestone of this group will be Black self-esteem. Okay, you can talk about races,
Mm,
you can talk about the problems, but I want to always, from time to time, to publish something that whoever was Black or something would really feel good for being there. So I
mm,
established some parameters, some topics that I always would like to see exposed to the public, to the members, like
mm,
the honor of Black women, our
mm,
cultural heritage, talk about health and, to treat your body as a temple to be protected, talk
mm,
about the wisdom of the essence and in self-esteem,
mm,
try to be a reliable bond between, the old people, the young people, talk about religion, but in a respectful way, talk
mm,
about finance, talk about diversity, but always prizing the Black people as the
mm,
center and the the protagonism of the subjects. Talk about nature in a respectful way, like we used to do in Africa, and
mm.
learn about Africa. Okay, to explain our roots and tell us who we are and etc. These kind of things. So I wanted to the group to add value to someone surfing Facebook and looking for Black culture and Black people and Black philosophy and everything, if you know what I mean.
And do you have any stories about people who actually, by joining the group, getting involved with the conversation, they actually over time develop a stronger sense of Black consciousness? Do you have any stories?
Oh, yeah, we have a we have a one. It's a case where we have this girl and this boy. They were interacting in some topic. I don't remember exactly which one. And they start dating, and they got married, and they have their kids, and they thank intelectualidade brasileira until now. We had some experience. Oh, it's important to quote that the group. I am the administrator, but we have two women, two Black women as moderators, Ana Paula, my queen, my wife, and Adriana Xavier. They are the two girls who are always moderating and checking in to see if everything is okay,
Mm,
and they have their autonomy to control the panel of discussion the way they please. And
mm.
I have to thank them for their endless support and priceless help that they give in order to keep the group minimally organized.
And do you think that, well, do you think that this Facebook group is important amongst Black people in Brazil? I mean, even though it's a group with 25,000 people, but why is it important for like all Black 100 million Black Brazilians?
Well, it's a very nice question because, like I said before, I didn't want it to be just one more group on Facebook. So we have the preoccupation of providing and offering topics that tells about our history. We suggest books and films and Netflix documentaries and biographies and bibliography, academic studies, valuable links where people can go and help them get some knowledge. I'm pretty sure the other groups similar to intellectual will do that too. But
Mm-hmm.
the thing is that since we have the preoccupation with some recommendations how to use the panel, this becomes like a library inside the Facebook when it comes to African studies in Portuguese, of course, African studies, Black culture, Black self-esteem,
Mm-hmm.
Black discussions. I'm not saying that the group is perfect. Every now and then we'll have some issues, we'll have to kind of, interfere. But all in all, the satisfaction, the level of satisfaction of the members, it's very high. Back in 2018,
Mm-hmm.
we had the Black Panther exhibit in the movie in the cinema,
Mm-hmm.
and due to the idea of Ana
They
Paula,
rented out a
my
whole
wife,
entire theater The Facebook
Yes,
group privately rented out
yes,
the theater to have a showing of Black Panther.
it was because she had the idea. She came with a proposition kind of a black movie section in a all white shopping mall, and it was, all the media channels and all the, the social media. They said, "Whoa, what's happening here?" It was a huge. We're planning as soon as we can. We're planning to organize something similar. But on the other hand, and this is very important to say, and I really want to emphasize this, we also have social initiatives. For example, Ana Paula now is always organizing actions in this time of coronavirus to to collect food
Mm-hmm.
to distribute it to the less privileged families in the communities. So she has already organized 3 actions. One was to serve food for people, the homeless people downtown, and the last 2 actions were to, get together with some people, brothers and sisters, get some money, buy food, and then distribute in some less privileged communities, primarily of Black people. I'm very proud of Ana Paula because she organizes the whole thing. I'm just trying to be like the assistant, and
Okay.
it's something that is very important. I have to recognize, acknowledge her effort to do something different, using the structure of intelectualidade afro-brasileira whenever possible. But it's a whole her merit, and also Adriana Xavier, the other moderator. They are the leaders. I'm just in the background trying to give the best I can do to support their initiative.
Nice. So we
Mm-hmm.
actually have quite a few questions from our audience.
Okay,
Somebody even
great.
asked me a question. I'm like, wow, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Paulo Melino Santos de Souza asked me, Kiritiana, what does the concept of African diaspora mean for you? Once the concept of African studies is acknowledged, but the connection with African diaspora with the African diaspora world would be the mission of Brazil. When I say the African diaspora, first and foremost, obviously, I'm talking about meaning that our origins start with Africa, and I recognize that there are people of African descent in Europe, in Asia, in South America, in North America, and I my goal as a journalist is to create connections between these people throughout the African diaspora. And I think what I'm doing right now, my goal is to create connections between Afro-Brazilians and people who perhaps don't speak Portuguese in the African diaspora, or who don't, or people who speak English. So that's what I'm doing right now with this video series. The next question is, this is a testy question. I knew this question was going to come up. Are you ready?
Go ahead. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm a Black man.
Paula asks, we currently see protests across the US. Brazil is more cruel to the Black people than the USA. What does Brazil need to do to wake up from this, I guess maybe this exploited cradle?
Okay. All right. Wonderful question. Hey,
So,
Claudio, how you doing, my friend? Yes, um, Claudio is a close friend of mine, and is a always intelligent and bright Black man. Uh, to answer your question, or to interact with your comments, I would say, and I'd like to to do this assessment between the difference, the 2 countries, the formation of the 2 countries, that can explain pretty much why we have this kind of reactions in the United States, and this apparent lack of reaction from Black people in Brazil. So, because the Brazilian formation and the bringing of Black people to Brazil had a different characteristic, the and keeping in mind that Brazil was considered a racial democracy, this kind of neutralized a little bit the strategies or the resistance strategies of Brazil, and the resistance strategies that we have, they are different from the resistance strategies that our brothers and sisters from the United States apply in the United States. Okay, so if in one hand the black community in the United States, they have this sense of community. They look around and say, okay, if we don't resist, we're going to die. We're going to disappear. Here in Brazil, we look around and we see this historiography saying that we live in a racial democracy, and then that's kind of okay. Okay, I'm not quite sure if I should do this or not. So the difference is right there, and of course, there's some other factors that we don't have the right time to discuss in depth here, but this is one of the first imprint that we can see in the difference of the two black communities, both in the United States and in Brazil.
And so do you think that, so that actually goes into my next question. So maybe you guys might have discussed this. Let me bring it up. I'll bring up this article that that's related to what you just talked about.
Okay.
A lot of Afro-Brazilians have been talking about for the last week. I'm going to bring it up. And you know,
okay.
you probably know which one I'm going to bring up.
Take your time.
Okay, so
the
previous question, and I'm sorry I can't.
No, it's okay. I can read it.
The article, but the title of the article is why don't Black Brazilians revolt like Americans? And you started to answer that question because that was similar. It's very similar to the previous question that we got. But could you go a little bit more in depth into whether? Well, first of all, can you ask us? Do you agree with this question? Do you agree that Black Brazilians do not revolt like Americans? And second of all, can you give us some more historical information on why there are differences between Blacks, Brazilians, and Black Americans? And this is for our audience who is not familiar with the history of Brazil and Blacks in Brazil.
Okay, great. So let's get started. Black people in Brazil, okay, had, and because of the number of Africans that were brought to Brazil, at a certain point of our history, we had 3 times more Black people in Brazil than the Native Americans, Native Brazilians, and the European families here. Okay, so we're in a large number. Yes, it's true. But the power, the control.
And just for the people who don't know, so currently Brazil, half of Brazil identifies as Black.
Exactly.
More than half, actually. More. It's close to 50%.
A little bit over than 50%. Yeah.
And this is very different from America, where there are only 13% of American population, 100 million is Black, and there were only 400,000 imported captured Africans imported into America, where that number is perhaps 5 to 10 times greater in Brazil. Right. People estimate 2.5 million, 3 million, maybe even 4 million captured Africans came to Brazil.
Exactly. Okay, and the first slave ships started to arrive in Brazil around 1526, 1530, you know, depending on the source of information that you get. And at a certain point, so they start to bring lots and lots of African human beings to Brazil until around 1830, 1840, when England started to, you know, to change the law. They start to sequester the slave ships crossing the Atlantic Ocean. So the formation of the Brazilian society was in a very oppressive, but at the same time in paternal way. So because of the Portuguese nobility, they start to say that this is we treat our slaves well. We are very paternal over them. They can even sit at the table. We live in a racial democracy. So this kind of speech, this kind of delivery of idea over the population really, really, really neutralized along history some of the strategies that, for example, the African Americans use with, revolt and riots, and we did have our own too, like the Malays revolt in Bahia and some others that, we can take another opportunity to talk about. But because of the oppression in the United States was very grave and was very oppressive and violent per se, and because we had the separation of laws and privilege in the American society to the point that it was legal to be racist in the United States, different from what happened in Brazil. We had this difference of results, outcomes in both countries, But let me tell you this: don't take it for granted. Don't take me wrong. Black people in Brazil are starting to wake up, say, "Whoa, something is wrong here." Just to quote what happened to our little boy, our little brother, João Pedro, a few weeks ago, when he was shot in the back by the police force in a very cowardly way. Okay, and in some other cases, like a black woman who was dragged out of a police car again, and Amarildo, and not to mention Marielle Franco, and in some other a few cases, it is getting too much. Okay, we black people want to sit at the table and talk, but not from our perspective, and not because you want it. A lot of things are getting out of control. And look, this country is as ours as theirs. If I can put it that way. We are here to contribute to the growth of the country. We were the power that generated a lot of wealth along history in Brazil, and we are here to contribute to make it a nation out of this. But the establishment, it needs to stop killing us. They are killing black people like livestock in Brazil. Many cases innocent, and primarily the black young kids, like on their 17 to 26, LGBTI population, black. They're killing these people, and we're losing our Mandelas. We are losing our Michelle Obamas. We are losing because the country is killing talents. It's killing the potential of intelligence and creativity of the country.
So that leads us to a very unique question from Tariq Jabal.
Okay.
Tariq says, Muhammad Ali, Paul Robeson, Jackie Robinson, Bill Russell are Black American athletes who spoke out against racism in the U.S. Who are the Brazilian athletes that speak out against racism in Brazil?
Fantastic. Very good question. And because of this anesthesia that black people had, I can say had, or used to have until 20, 25 years ago, and way back then, we had this case where a black celebrity would, go to the top, but then would either, I wouldn't say turn the back, but like adapt to the establishment and kind of not say anything about being black and the problems happening in Brazil. But in the recent years, the young generation, they are speaking out a little bit more. We had Rafaela, the judo champion. We had Douglas, the judo. I'm sorry, he used to. What was the name of the fight? He used to compete with. It was jiu-jitsu guy. I think it's jiu-jitsu Douglas.
Mm-hmm.
We had a few others, and they start to talk a little bit more freely. And this is very important because as long as they are role models, the young kids, the children, the black children say, "Oh, okay, I can do the same. I can repeat. I can emulate what they're saying." But
Mm-hmm.
it's a process. I cannot recall right now, 35, 40 years ago, one single, one single athlete, top level athlete that would say something about black people in Brazil, except for maybe Paulo Cesar Caju, okay, who was a soccer player in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
You he played two World Cups. Then he moved to France. Is one example. With some restrictions, I don't want to get into that now, but with some restrictions that I personally have about black people and black men
Mm-hmm.
forming families, but we can discuss this later.
Okay.
And
Okay.
yes, and Paulo Cesar Caju, I guess, was the only one I can, call up in my mind now as a black celebrity, a black athlete
Hmm.
that spoke against racism in Brazil.
Paulo.
We may have more. We may have had more, but right now this will come, tip of my tongue.
So why don't we actually talk about your book right now? You
Okay.
published a book called O Ultimo Negro.
Exactly.
Please tell us
Hmm.
what this book is about. I'm going to bring it up on our screen.
Oh, okay.
And then we actually have a question for you about your book from the audience.
All right. Okay, great. So back in 2006 or 7, this is the thing. I always wrote something. It was in a very naive way. I used to write something for myself or whatsoever. And then back in 2005, 2006, I started to get the feeling, get the need to start to systematize a little bit more what I wrote. Then I started to think about some personal experiences, some fiction, and et cetera, et cetera. And then I started to write something. And little did I know that I was starting to write a book, because I started to create the characters and the plot and the sequence of facts. Then, for my surprise, I started to really dedicate to that. So I used to spend overnight writing, put some black music and writing. Da, 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 da. Then in 2008, 2010, I think, 2009, around that time, I finished the book. So, and then I asked myself, okay, I finished. So what am I, what am I gonna do with this now? Then, before going to any editing, any publisher, I started to say, okay, I need to make sure that this is something worth publishing. Then I took the work to some critics, some analysts first. I say, look, I got this. What do you think? And then, for my surprise, I said, whoa, we got to publish this.
Hmm.
So after I received the feedback from these critics, then I started looking for a publisher. Then I presented 3 or 4. One of them said, okay, I will publish this. Then he got the thing, and things started, and here I am. Became a nice. It sold out. We're thinking about the second edition or the third edition already, and because it's sold out, I think only one bookstore in Rio de Janeiro has it.
Wow.
And my next step is to publish in English for the international audience.
Sandrina Anjos asks, what is the main message you would like to share when you wrote the book O Ultimo Negro?
Oh, fantastic question. Oh, by the way, the right title of the second book is O Enigma Ashanti. O
Ah,
Enigma Ashanti.
okay.
Okay. Yes. So when I wrote the book, it was a sum of experience. I put, because I have characters, and this is very nice. I have characters from Africa,
Mm-hmm.
characters from the United States, and characters from Brazil. and apparently they are separated. But along the way, the chapters start to blend in and get closer and closer and closer, and get to one point that it becomes one single plot, and then things start happening. But the main message is to bring the African diaspora in a how can I say, in a literature way, to use literature as a means to make people read about Black history in Brazil, in Africa, and in the United States. It's had lots of characters and situations that, really interesting. I think who can have the opportunity to read it, I'm sure that will be surprised.
Cool.
And the message, the Enigma Ashanti, which is my second fiction, because of the coronavirus, I had to postpone. I had a few issues with my publisher, but it will come out next year, certainly. I promise.
And the next question is from Brian Jones. Brian Jones has been watching almost all of our videos. Thank you so much for your attendance, Brian Jones. He asks, for the Black consciousness movement in Brazil, how has Bolsonaro affected the evolution of the movement? Has Bolsonaro and his supporters made it more difficult, or has Bolsonaro given the movement a greater urgency for the growth of Black consciousness?
Okay, first of all, screw Bolsonaro. I don't care about him. He's a jerk. He's an idiot. And this message, actually, I'm sending to all the Bolsonaro supporters. You are making us stronger. You have no idea what kind of reaction you're going to have. We're not afraid of you. Brazil is ours too. We helped construct this country, and you will have to live with us. Okay? The good or the bad way. We're not afraid of you. We're not scared about you. And this is our country too. I don't care what you think. And Bolsonaro, your days are counting down. You're going to go out. You're going to get kicked out of the government. Okay? We Black people are strong. We don't care about you. You are trash. You're going to go to the trash of history. And I'll do my best to help that happen as soon as possible.
Okay. Okay. Oh, dang, I'm almost to the end of my questions. Actually, one question that I wanted to ask you that I didn't have on my list of original questions is, if a young man came to you and said, Dury, I want to have the same pride in being Black that you have. Okay. I want to develop my Black consciousness. What should I do?
Wonderful. Okay. Well, first of all, you have to start respecting yourself. Don't let the society tell you who you are. If you want to know about yourself, and if you're a little Black boy or Black girl, read about Africa. But don't read what the white book says. Read about the real history of Africa before the colonization, before the invasion. About the kingdoms, the kings and the princes, and the achievements, and the science, and the biology, the geography. Look, unfortunately, if you go to a Black person now and you ask how many countries are there in Africa, probably the person, oh, I don't know. Oh, give me the name of 5 African countries or areas. I don't know. So there's this huge gap between we Black people in diaspora and our roots, our heritage, our ancestry. So we need to build that bridge again. This is one of the things I would say. The second thing is, if you're a Black boy, respect a Black girl. Because if you start teaching a Black boy to respect a Black girl since the early years of his life, he will grow up respecting Black women for the rest of his life. We Black men, we need to learn how to respect, exalt, give privilege, and treat our Black women as queens, because there's no Black movement without Black families. There's no Black movement without there's no Black resistance without Black families. And when I say family, I mean hetero or homosexual families. Let the people be happy, okay?
Mhm.
Another thing, we have to teach our black boys to respect the LGBT community.
Mhm.
They deserve our respect, our support,
Mhm.
not because of my sexual preferences that I'm going to undermine my black brother or my black sister who have a different mindset when it comes to affective life. Okay, we have to respect uh, our finances, create our own business. Of
Mhm.
course, we have to adapt the language to the understanding of a little black boy, but we
Mhm.
have to start to we black people talking to black people. We black men, we need to start to support another black man,
Mhm.
another black man, a black woman's business. We need to learn how to make the money circulate among us, to generate and to make the wealthy circulate among us too.
Mhm.
Also, we need to connect with other black people in diaspora.
Mhm.
Okay, because we have common problems. We have common problems. The same problems not only in the United States but in Europe, with a black community in Europe, in Caribbean, in Latin America.
Mhm.
Okay, where are we? Are we talking? Are we sharing best practice in terms of resistance?
Mhm.
Okay, maybe some people in Peru or some black people in Jamaica, they have some strategies that may work out, and then we can also get a look. We did this and it worked out. Can we get together? Can we build bridges among us?
Mhm.
Why are we separated? They're killing people, black people in Canada, they're killing black people in the United States, in
Mhm.
Mexico, in the Caribbean, in Brazil, all the way down. What were we going to do? We need to do something. It's the right time. We have to take this opportunity. This coronavirus will go over eventually. As I see the day that we will be able to go out back in society again, to live in society again. We got to do something. We got to do something. I have some plans to organize the black organizations and say, look, we need to change this game. We need to change this, get together,
Mhm.
unite, create ideas, and press the authorities. They
Mhm.
need our votes. They need they need they want to be elected. So let's put our representatives in power. Okay. In the legislative and executive and the judiciary, let's put our people there. What can we do in order to get to this situation, to
Mhm.
put black people in power? Okay, let's open our business. Let's open our schools. This is our country too. Come on, and most of all, we need to find solutions to stop police brutality and
Mhm.
violence against the less privileged communities. We
Mhm.
cannot permit anymore that the police forces go into the favelas and slums and just kill people like we were livestock. Stop.
Mhm.
I'm at it. I'm sick and tired of this kind of thing. And I would like to offer some messages or some uplifting reflections about the killing of João Pedro and Marielle Franco and Amarildo and George Floyd and a whole lot of brothers and sisters. Uh, is the time for black people to get together in Brazil, outside Brazil. We need to come up with this global summit where we're going to start to demand and not ask anymore. We're going to start to demand respect for we being human beings, for our dignity as human beings, for our uh, condition of living in a world that, for
Mhm.
a number of reasons, seem not to like black skin. So it's time to give it a stop. Okay, it's time for us black people to unite, to organize resistance, to talk to each other, to share best practices, because enough is enough. It's just too much. I am the father of 3 young kids, and I always pray to our ancestry to protect them when they go out in the street, because I'm not sure they're going to come out, on a vertical position. You know, so I've had it as a black man. I've had it, and I'm here. I offer myself for support, some kind of exchange of ideas, so we can stop this crap.
And we actually have one last question from Paulo. One more question.
Okay.
Durval, do you think that blacks inside of left parties and this question about black movement or maybe do you believe in the blacks inside of left parties in this question about black movement against the fascism? The fascism and racism could be the same struggle.
And left parties in this question about. Okay, well, if you stop to think, a black person is a black party, even when this person is alone. Each person is a black movement. And I have some restrictions about tagging black people to this or that ideology. We have our own ideology. Our primary ideology is to survive,
Mm-hmm.
to protect our lives, our families, and everything. Okay, so to answer your questions, I will respect any kind of movement that wants to tag us as left or whatever you call liberal. I don't care. The only thing that I would like to know and I refrain myself from participating in this or that political party, because once you get there, the rules of the game seem to change. Okay, look, our struggle started in Africa when the Europeans invaded the continent. I don't know if you want to call that left or right. We got to survive, and after they brought us up here, the struggle continues. Open the newspaper tomorrow, you see, oh, they killed 3 4 black people here and there. So this is our struggle. If you want to call it left or right, I don't care. I want my people safe. I want our people safe, with money in the pocket, taking care of their families, traveling, getting an education. This is what I want. If you permit me, Kiratiana, I have some principles that I would like to share
Of course.
about the approach that I have about our people when it comes to talking about black movement or black resistance. Okay,
Go for it.
there
Mm-hmm.
are some principles that I follow that I, as much as I can, try to apply to all the groups that I participate in when I am invited to do some, to be a speaker or to some presentation. I have 10 basic um, principles that I try to follow as much as I can. Okay, so I'm gonna go. They're in the number of 10, and I'm gonna go one by one. Okay, so the first one would be to praise and advocate for the honor of a black woman. Okay, I think every
I like
black man, yes. Okay, there's a one of principle to praise a black woman is a priority in my life because I came out of a black woman.
Mm-hmm.
Secure the legacy of your cultural heritage. Okay, meaning you have to know who you are and where the people that your ancestry came from. Treat your body as a temple to be protected. You have to treat your body. You have to respect who you are in and out. Okay, try to get some physical, some exercises, and be careful what you eat and drink. Nurture with wisdom the essence of your self-esteem. You have to teach our kids and the next generations to love who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Be a reliable bond between black infancy and seniority. So here I am in my 50s and something. I need to see what am I doing to the eyes of people who see me as a role model,
Mm-hmm.
and how I can support and how proud the elderly black people will be over me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, through my actions and thoughts and everything. Armor your personal faith and respect one's creed. And this is important because, some people are Christians, some people are Muslims, some people are this or that, and African religions as well. And some people have no religion,
Mm-hmm.
and they are as important in this struggle. They are as important as any believer. Okay, don't exclude the brother, the sister, because he Protestant or Catholic or Candomblé or because he's an atheist. At the end of the day, we're
Mm-hmm.
all in the same boat. Okay, dwell carefully upon your personal finances. We black people, since we live in a capitalist part of the world, we need to know how to open our business, manage our finances, control our money, and distribute the wealth among us. Okay. Diversity. Okay, we have to learn how to respect the order of the universal diversity. Okay, I'm black. I demand respect from white people, from Japanese people, but I also have to give this respect back. But I
Mm-hmm.
also have to respect the Native Americans. I have to respect LGBT community. I'm sorry if I spelled the name incorrectly, but so we are all one. We are all. There's no better. There's no white. At the end of the day, at least in a perfect world, this would be necessary. Unfortunately, we live in a world that we black people, we have to reinforce our human dignity all the time. All the time, we have to be reinforcing who we are, our values, our history. Okay, so start respecting yourself, demand respect from others, but also you have to give respect back. Uh, Preserve the habitat which feeds and harbors you. You can see what's happening in Amazon. People don't care, but I think our next generation will suffer this with lack of water, lack of rainforest, lack of this and that. Okay, it's good. We start to worry about this. Maybe we can still do something to save the planet. And last but not least, to learn about Africa, because that will explain your roots and tell you who you are. I only discovered the value of my life, the sense of who I am, after starting reading about Africa. Okay, and this kind of emotion I'd like to share with my brothers and sisters. Learn about Africa. Try to get some DNA tests or read about the history of the countries, the kingdoms, and the queens, and you will be proud of yourself after that. I guarantee to you.
Wow.
That's
Okay. Well, thank you so much for that. For those of you guys who are here, I do want to remind you guys that we have some other talks coming up. So they're always at the same time. Tomorrow we actually have Davi Pereira Jr., who is a Quilombola, and he's going to talk about Brazil's Quilombos and their fight for survival. He's from a Quilombo in Maranhão. I'm looking forward to that conversation. And then on Thursday, we have Humberto Baltar, another English teacher, who is going to talk about being a Black father in Brazil. So it's always at the same time, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 7. And I want to remind you guys to follow Durval on Instagram. That's his Instagram down here. One last quick question. I know this is probably not a quick question, but what can African Americans learn from Afro Brazilians about fighting against racism?
Great. I think that one lesson, if any, that we Black Brazilian can exchange with our brothers and sisters from the United States, that first of all, to believe that a fair society is possible, we still invest in this belief in Brazil that somewhere along the way will be treated fairly and equally. Okay, but this is not going to fall from the sky. We have to fight for it. And we are starting to organize and review strategies to get to that point. Another thing that it's feasible for our brothers and sisters to believe is that we feel that we are closer to Africa than the brothers and sisters from the United States, spiritually, in behavior, in culture. So we still have a lot of African essence in the way we talk, the way we communicate, the way we interact with each other. Okay, from brother to brother, from brother to sister, and sister to sister as a community. So it would be nice to see the middle and middle class of African Americans to do some effort to go back to their roots, to our roots, in terms of, okay, where did I come from? Okay, who am I? What can I do in order to armor and give value to my roots, my heritage? Okay, so these two, I think, okay, these two milestones could be something that our brothers and sisters from the United States would learn from us or exchange with us. But on the other hand, working the other way around, I think we Black people in Brazil, we need to organize ourselves, create institutions
Mm-hmm.
and organizations which are Black oriented, just like our brothers and sisters do in the United States. The
Mm-hmm.
achievements are clear along the year, even though with the Jim Crow and all the obstacles along the way, you guys did a great job in terms of achievement, showing
Mm-hmm.
that some things are possible. Okay, and the end of racism, as we know it, will take us still a lot of effort, but we can create an alliance among us
Mm-hmm.
to create this bond, so make us stronger. I'm ready to contribute to the little something that I have to get to that point and help as much as I can.
Well, thank you so much. That we're
Anytime.
coming to the end of our live video with Durval
Okay.
Arantes.
Thank you
Thank you
very
so
much.
much.
Thanks for having me.
I will see you online. I always see you online. So thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
And
Anytime, whenever you
we'll
want.
be in touch.
Okay. Okay. And thanks for the audience, for everybody who wanted to participate. And I hope it has had it has added some kind of value to the conversation, to um, exchange of knowledge to all of us. Okay. Thank you so much, and all the glory to our ancestry.
Cool. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye. See you.